Marcus Thompson attended his neighbor's funeral on a cold Tuesday morning in March. He watched as they lowered Gerald Pritchard's casket into the frozen ground, listened to the priest's somber words, and shook hands with Gerald's distant relatives who'd flown in from out of state. The funeral was small. Gerald had been a quiet man, kept to himself, had no close friends or family nearby. Marcus had been his neighbor for 3 years and probably knew him better than anyone else at that funeral, which wasn't saying much. That evening, Marcus stood at his kitchen window, looking at Gerald's dark house next door. The relatives had already left town, the estate was in probate, and the house would sit empty until it could be sold. It looked sad and abandoned, curtains drawn, no lights, no life. Marcus felt a pang of melancholy. Gerald had been only 62, too young to die of a sudden heart attack. 6 weeks passed. Marcus got used to the dark house next door, the overgrown lawn, the newspapers piling up, until he finally called to have the subscription cancelled. Then, on a Saturday morning exactly 6 weeks after the funeral, Marcus was getting his mail when he saw something impossible. Smoke was coming from Gerald's chimney. Not much, just a thin wisp, but definitely smoke. And as Marcus stood there staring, a light came on in the living room window. Someone was in Gerald's house. Someone was living there. Marcus crossed onto Gerald's property and walked up to the front door. He raised his hand and knocked. 3 firm raps on the wooden door. Footsteps inside. Slow, deliberate footsteps approaching the door. The door opened. Gerald Pritchard stood there, smiling warmly. "Marcus, good to see you. Come in. Come in. I just made coffee." Marcus couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Gerald Pritchard, who'd been dead and buried for 6 weeks, stood in his doorway wearing his usual cardigan and slippers, looking exactly as he had before his death. "You're dead," Marcus managed to say. "I went to your funeral. I saw them bury you. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave your like, because the ending of this story will shake you in ways you never imagined. And tell me in the comments, from which city are you watching this story?" Gerald laughed as if Marcus had told a joke. "Marcus, I think you've been working too hard. I've been right here the whole time. Maybe you're thinking of someone else." "No," Marcus said firmly. "You're Gerald Pritchard. You died of a heart attack on January 23rd. Your funeral was on March 5th. I was there. I saw your body." Gerald's expression changed, the friendly smile disappearing. "Marcus, I don't know what to tell you. I'm clearly not dead. I'm standing right here." Marcus stepped back, his mind reeling. This couldn't be real. People didn't come back from the dead. "I'm not confused. You died." "Maybe you should come inside," Gerald suggested. "Sit down, have some coffee, we can talk about this." But Marcus turned and walked quickly back to his house, feeling Gerald's eyes on his back the entire way. Inside his home, Marcus rushed to his desk and yanked open a drawer. There it was, the funeral program for Gerald Pritchard, dated March 5th. A photo of Gerald smiling, the dates of his birth and death printed in elegant script. January 18th, 1962, January 23rd, 2024. Dead at 62. Marcus stared at the program, then looked out his window at Gerald's house. Smoke still rose from the chimney. Lights glowed in the windows. And in the living room, he could see Gerald sitting in his chair, reading a newspaper, as if nothing was wrong. Marcus called his ex-wife Jennifer. "Did we go to Gerald Pritchard's funeral 6 weeks ago?" Jennifer paused. "What? Marcus, I don't know what you're talking about. Gerald is alive. I saw him last week when I picked up Emma." Marcus felt the floor drop. "That's impossible. He died. We both went to the funeral. You wore your black dress." "I remember no such thing," Jennifer said. "Gerald is alive and well. Now, if you're having some kind of breakdown, maybe you should see someone." She hung up. Marcus spent the rest of the day researching. Googling Gerald's name plus obituary brought up nothing. No death notices, no funeral home listings, nothing. It was as if Gerald's death had been erased from history, but Marcus had the funeral program. He had detailed memories of that day. Those memories were real. By evening, Marcus had convinced himself he needed more evidence. He got out his laptop and went through his photos from January and February. He found photos from a snowstorm on January 28th, 5 days after Gerald supposedly died. In the background of several shots, Gerald's house was clearly visible. Lights on in the windows, smoke from the chimney, footprints in the snow. Gerald had been in his house 5 days after he allegedly died. Marcus looked out his window. Gerald's house was lit up, every room glowing. And in the kitchen window, he could see Gerald moving around, preparing dinner, going about his evening routine as if he'd never died. But Marcus knew what he remembered, and he had the funeral program to prove it. So if Gerald was really dead, then who or what was living in his house? The next morning, Marcus decided he needed answers. He grabbed the funeral program and walked to Gerald's door, knocking hard. Gerald opened almost immediately, as if he'd been waiting. "Marcus, back so soon." "Explain this," Marcus said, holding up the funeral program. Gerald looked at it, his expression unreadable. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he stepped aside. "Come in. We should talk." Every instinct told Marcus not to enter, but he needed to understand. He stepped inside. Gerald's house looked exactly as it always had. Same furniture, same decor, same everything. Nothing seemed wrong. "Sit," Gerald said, gesturing to the couch. "I'll get us coffee." Gerald returned with 2 mugs. He sat in his chair and looked at Marcus seriously. "So, you remember my funeral?" Marcus's heart skipped. "You admit you died." "I admit that you remember my funeral. That's not quite the same thing." Gerald sipped his coffee. "What if I told you that you're not in the same reality you were in 6 weeks ago? What if you somehow shifted from one version of events to another? In one reality I died. You went to my funeral. But in this reality I never died. I've been here all along." "That's insane," Marcus said. "More insane than a dead man walking." Gerald leaned forward. "Marcus, what if reality is more fluid than you think? More malleable? Sometimes people slip between the cracks. They remember things from other versions of events." "Why would that happen? Why would I slip between realities?" Gerald smiled, that wrong smile Marcus was beginning to recognize. "Maybe you didn't. Maybe I did." The temperature seemed to drop. "I died on January 23rd, just like you remember. Heart attack right in this chair. I was dead for 3 days before anyone found me. The funeral happened, all of it. But death—" Gerald paused. "Death is not what we think it is. It's not an ending. It's a transition. And sometimes, if you're desperate enough, if you know the right way, you can come back. Not to the same reality, but to one where you never died." Marcus stood up. "I need to go." He moved toward the door, but Gerald spoke again. "You're the only one who remembers, Marcus. The only loose thread in my new reality. As long as you're here, there's always a risk that something will go wrong. I don't want to hurt you, but I will do what I have to do to protect my existence." Marcus ran out of the house. Behind him, he heard Gerald say quietly, "Go home, Marcus. Forget this conversation. Accept the reality everyone else accepts. It'll be easier for you. Safer." Back in his house, Marcus tried to process what Gerald had said. Gerald had admitted to dying. He admitted to somehow crossing back from death into a different reality. But that was impossible, wasn't it? His phone rang. His daughter Emma calling from her mother's house. "Dad, Mum's acting weird." Emma was crying. "She's just different. Like she's not really Mum. She keeps forgetting things. And yesterday I caught her just standing in the kitchen, staring at nothing for like an hour." Marcus felt ice in his veins. "When did this start?" "Maybe a few days ago," Emma said. "Dad, what's wrong? What's happening?" Marcus closed his eyes. Gerald. Gerald was doing this, spreading whatever he was to other people. "Emma, I need you to pack a bag. Stay at a friend's house tonight. Don't be alone with your mother." He gave her quick instructions and hung up. Then Marcus went to his window and looked at Gerald's house. Gerald stood in his window, looking back. They stared at each other across the space between their houses. Then Gerald reached up and closed his curtains, cutting off Marcus's view. Marcus knew then that this was just the beginning. Whatever Gerald was, he was spreading his condition, and Marcus might be the only one who could stop it. Over the next week, Marcus became obsessed with watching Gerald. He documented everything. Gerald's routines, his behaviors, his interactions. And he noticed things. Strange things. Gerald would prepare meals, but never actually eat them. The food would sit on the plate, untouched. Gerald would go through the motions of eating, but nothing ever reached his mouth. Marcus watched Gerald sit in his living room chair for 2 hours one evening, never once seeing his chest rise and fall. No breathing, no fidgeting, no unconscious movements. Gerald was perfectly still, like a mannequin, and Gerald didn't sleep. Marcus stayed up for 3 nights straight, watching. Gerald's bedroom light never came on. He just sat in that chair all night, every night, unmoving. On the 4th day, Marcus followed Gerald to the grocery store. Inside, Marcus pretended to shop while watching Gerald move through the aisles. Gerald selected items, bread, milk, eggs, and put them in his cart. But Marcus noticed something impossible. Each time Gerald rounded a corner out of sight, when Marcus saw him again, the same items were back on the shelves. Gerald would select the bread again, place it in his cart, walk away. The cycle repeated endlessly. At checkout, Gerald handed items to the cashier, who scanned them with a blank expression Marcus had seen before on people who'd been near Gerald's house. Money changed hands. Bags were filled. But when Marcus looked at Gerald's cart afterward, it was empty. Gerald walked out with empty bags. Marcus sat in his car, trying to process what he'd seen. Gerald was maintaining the appearance of a normal life, but it was all theatre. He didn't eat, didn't sleep, didn't actually shop. He was just going through the motions, creating an illusion of normalcy. When Marcus got home, Gerald was waiting in his yard. "Interesting shopping trip," Gerald called across the property line. "I know you've been watching me. I know you've been documenting what you see. Did you learn anything useful?" "You're not alive," Marcus said. "Not really. You're just pretending." Gerald's expression didn't change. "Very perceptive. This body doesn't function the way a living body does. It doesn't need to. It's just a vessel, a container for consciousness. Then what are you, really? I'm what remains when everything else is stripped away. Pure consciousness, pure will, pure determination to exist, the part of Gerald Pritchard that refused to accept death. That's not Gerald. That's something else wearing his face." Gerald stepped closer. "Tell me, Marcus, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Who are you going to tell? Who would believe you? I'll figure something out." "Will you?" Gerald's voice took on a harder edge. "Because I've been thinking. You're not just a loose thread. You're an anchor point. As long as you remember my death, this reality is unstable. It could unravel at any moment." "Good. Maybe it should. Do you really want everyone to suddenly remember my death? To have their reality shatter? Some of them would break, Marcus. You're lying, trying to manipulate me. I'm telling you the truth, and if I have to remove you from this reality entirely, make it so you never existed here at all, I'll do it." Gerald walked back to his house and went inside. Marcus stood in his driveway, shaking. Gerald had just threatened to erase him from reality. Could he really do that? Marcus didn't know, but he wasn't going to stop investigating. If anything, Gerald's threat proved Marcus was onto something important. Marcus knew he needed help. He couldn't fight this alone. He remembered something. Dr. Sarah Morrison, a therapist his ex-wife had mentioned. She practiced outside the immediate area, far from Gerald's influence. Maybe she could help. Marcus sent Dr. Morrison an urgent email explaining his situation. To his surprise, she responded quickly, asking him to meet her the next day. When Marcus arrived at her office, he found a woman in her 50s with intelligent eyes and a calm demeanor. "Mr. Thompson," she said, "your email was concerning. Tell me everything." Marcus did. He explained about Gerald's death, the funeral, coming back to find Gerald alive, and everyone's memories changed. Dr. Morrison listened without interrupting, taking notes. When Marcus finished, she sat back. "I believe you," she said. Marcus blinked. "What?" "I believe that something genuinely anomalous is happening, because you're not the first person to report something like this." She pulled out a thick folder. 3 years ago, there was an incident in Millbrook. A woman named Patricia Holloway died in a car accident. Her funeral was well attended. But 2 months later, she moved back into her old house, started living again as if nothing had happened. "Just like Gerald," Marcus breathed. "Exactly. And like in your case, most people's memories adjusted. But a few people remembered. Within 6 months, those people had either moved away or become like Patricia. Converted. What happened to the town? It's still there, still functioning, but everyone in it is wrong. They go through the motions but don't truly live. The town is a dead zone. Marcus felt sick. So that's what's happening to my neighborhood. Gerald is converting people. It appears so. I call them death echoes. When someone dies but refuses to accept it, they can sometimes create an echo of themselves. This echo rewrites local reality to accommodate its existence, but the echo isn't truly alive. It's just a persistent pattern. Can it be stopped? Dr. Morrison's expression darkened. I've been researching this for years. Traditional approaches don't work, but there might be another way. The echoes have an anchor point, a specific object or location that ties them to our reality. If we could find Gerald's anchor and destroy it, the echo might collapse. What's the alternative? Let Gerald continue spreading until everyone is converted. Eventually, the entire region would become a dead zone. Then we have to try. We have to find Gerald's anchor. Dr. Morrison nodded. I was hoping you'd say that. But first, you need to get your daughter somewhere safe. If Jennifer's been converted, Emma is at risk. Marcus called Emma immediately and arranged for her to stay with his sister in Ohio. Then he and Dr. Morrison began planning their approach. They would search Gerald's house for the anchor, something Gerald had been deeply attached to in life, something that represented his reason for existing. Gerald was profoundly lonely, Marcus said, remembering their few conversations. He had no close family, no friends. He spent most of his time alone. His loneliness. That's what drove him to come back. Then the anchor might be something connected to his isolation, Dr. Morrison said. We'll search his house tomorrow, but Marcus, this is dangerous. If Gerald catches us, there's no telling what he'll do. That night, Marcus barely slept. Tomorrow they would enter Gerald's house and search for the anchor. Tomorrow they would try to end the death echo before it spread further, and Marcus had a terrible feeling that nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, Dr. Morrison arrived with 2 copper bracelets inlaid with strange symbols. Temporal stabilizers. They should slow the conversion process if Gerald tries to turn us, long enough to find the anchor and get out. They waited until Gerald left for his fake grocery shopping, then approached his house. The door was unlocked as if Gerald was inviting them in. They entered cautiously. Inside, everything looked normal, but felt wrong. The proportions were slightly off, the colors too vivid or too dull. The anchor will feel wrong, Dr. Morrison said, holding up a detector. Out of place, it'll cause reality distortions. They moved through the house, living room, kitchen, hallway. The detector led them upstairs to Gerald's bedroom. The door was closed but unlocked. Marcus pushed it open. Inside, the room was nearly empty except for a small pedestal in the center. On it sat a photograph in an ornate frame, a younger Gerald standing next to a woman. They were both smiling, genuinely happy. His wife, Marcus realized. That's it, Dr. Morrison said, her detector screaming. His marriage, his lost love. That's what he couldn't let go of. Marcus reached for the photograph. The moment his fingers touched the frame, the room changed. Suddenly, Marcus was in a hospital room. The younger Gerald sat beside a bed, holding the hand of the woman from the photo. She was dying. "Promise me you'll live," she whispered. "Really live. Find someone new. Be happy." "I promise," Gerald lied. The woman died, and Gerald kept his vigil beside her body, unable to let go. The vision shifted. Marcus saw the next 30 years of Gerald's life, working, eating, sleeping, but never truly living. He'd spent 3 decades as a living death echo, refusing to move on from his wife's death. When his heart finally gave out, he simply couldn't accept that he'd wasted his life. So he came back, rewrote reality, made it so he could exist again. Marcus snapped back to the present, the photograph still in his hands. He understood now Gerald wasn't evil, he was broken, but understanding didn't change what had to be done. "I'm sorry, Gerald," Marcus whispered. Then he threw the photograph to the floor. The frame shattered. and the house began to scream. The sound wasn't human, it was reality itself tearing apart. The walls rippled like water, the floor buckled, colors inverted and normalized repeatedly. "Run!" "Doctor." Morrison grabbed Marcus and they stumbled toward the stairs. They burst out the front door just as Gerald appeared. But he wasn't Gerald anymore. The human mask had dropped. What stood before them was a writhing mass of shadow, a hole in reality shaped like a person, the death echo in its true form. "What have you done?" it screamed in 1,000 voices. The echo reached for them, but its form was dissipating. Without the anchor, it couldn't hold itself together. All around them, the converted collapsed. One moment standing, the next unconscious on the ground. The echo's influence was breaking. Gerald's form gave one final shriek. Then it vanished, leaving only the echo of that terrible scream. Marcus and Dr. Morrison stood in sudden silence. The neighborhood was still. The pressure was gone. It was over. Jennifer was among the collapsed, lying on the street. Marcus ran to her. "Jennifer? Can you hear me?" Her eyes opened, confused. "Marcus, what happened? Why am I in the street? You don't remember." "I remember making dinner, and then... it's fuzzy. Like a dream I can't quite remember." Around them, neighbors woke equally confused. They had no memory of being converted, no memory of the past weeks as Gerald's vessels. The echo had rewritten their memories, erasing the horror. Only Marcus and Dr. Morrison remembered. They were the anchors to true reality, carrying those memories forever. Over the next weeks, things returned to normal. Gerald's house stood empty again, truly empty this time. A for sale sign went up. The neighborhood resumed its routines. But Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Small inconsistencies bothered him. Jennifer had no memory of threatening to take Emma. Bob Martinez swore he'd never talked to Marcus about Gerald being alive. Reality had corrected itself, but imperfectly. There were seams where the old and new didn't quite match. Marcus started documenting every inconsistency. Dr. Morrison did the same, and they met weekly to compare notes. "This is common after an echo collapses," she explained. "Reality repairs itself, but the repairs show, like scars." Marcus took Emma home from Ohio. His daughter seemed fine, resilient, but she'd always know something bad had happened, even if Marcus couldn't tell her the details. That gap between them, that secret, would always be there. Morrison introduced Marcus to a network of researchers tracking death echoes across the country. Dr. James Chen in California, Professor Sarah Williams in New York, and others. They shared information, tracked patterns, coordinated responses. "We're seeing 3 new echoes per month," Dr. Chen said during a video conference. "It's accelerating. At this rate, we'll see daily occurrences within 2 years. We need prevention methods," another researcher suggested. "Not just ending echoes after they appear." But no one had answers. How do you prevent someone from refusing to accept death? Marcus began responding to echo incidents with Dr. Morrison. They developed a protocol: identify the echo, find the anchor, destroy it before the echo could spread. Over 6 months, they handled 14 cases. Some echoes were confused and accepted guidance to move on. Others fought desperately to maintain their existence. Each echo Marcus released left an imprint on him. He dreamed about them, felt their fear as his own. He was collecting their traumas, carrying their desperate need to exist. But he couldn't stop. Someone had to help them. Then Emma called with unexpected news. "Dad, I know what you're doing. I know about the death echoes." Marcus felt the floor drop. "How?" "I've been researching. I found your posts online, the forums where you help people. I figured it out." She looked at him seriously. "And I want to help." "Absolutely not. You're too young." "I'm good with computers and research. Dr. Morrison needs better data analysis. I can do that safely from a distance. You can either let me help, or I'll do it anyway, but more dangerously." Marcus wanted to refuse, but he recognized her determination. After discussing with Dr. Morrison, they agreed Emma could help with data analysis and pattern recognition. No field work, no direct contact with echoes. Having Emma involved changed things. No more secrets between them. And Emma quickly proved invaluable. identifying patterns in the data that the adult researchers had missed. The incidents cluster around specific locations, she discovered. Places connected to historical traumas, hospitals, disaster sites. And Dad, there's an epicenter, our old neighborhood. It's been generating echoes for decades. Marcus felt ice in his veins. His neighborhood was a hotspot, a location where the barrier between life and death was naturally weaker. Gerald hadn't been the first. He'd been the latest in a long series. "You need to move," Emma said. "That location is dangerous." Marcus knew she was right, but something kept him there, drawn to that thin spot in reality. The call came at 3 a.m. Dr. Morrison, her voice tight with urgency. "We have a situation, an echo unlike anything we've encountered. Not a person, an entire building." Marcus dressed quickly and drove to meet the team. Dr. Morrison explained as they drove to Pittsburgh. The Riverside Hospital was demolished last month. Over 300 deaths occurred there over 70 years. Now the empty lot is manifesting reality distortions. People see the hospital still standing. Some enter and don't come back. They arrived at the vacant lot. Through shimmering air, Marcus could see the outline of a 7-story hospital occupying the same space as the empty lot. "Reality is extremely unstable here," Dr. Morrison said, checking her instruments. They passed through the fence and the world shifted. Suddenly, they were in a quiet bubble where only the hospital existed. They entered through the front doors. Inside, everything looked preserved. Worn floors, dated furniture, empty hallways. The building was remembering itself. Following Marcus's instincts, they reached the 7th floor and found room 7117. Inside lay an elderly man in a hospital bed, hooked up to machines. "Is he real?" someone whispered. "He's an echo," Dr. Morrison said. "The first death in this hospital. All the others attached themselves to him." The man's eyes opened. "Henry Morrison. First patient to die here, 1954. I fought death, held on, and somehow I stayed. 307 of us merged together, refusing to die. When they demolished the building, we rebuilt ourselves as an echo." "We can help you, Dr. I," Morrison said gently. "Help you move on." "There's a cornerstone," Henry said, "in the basement. Destroy it and we'll all be released. Please hurry." They found the cornerstone, a granite block marked Riverside Hospital, founded 1953. Dr. Chen set explosive charges designed to destroy reality anchors. "Everyone back. This is going to be intense." The explosion wasn't loud, a deep pulse Marcus felt in his chest. The cornerstone shattered, and the hospital screamed. Not with human voices, but with the collective cry of 307 souls releasing at once. The building collapsed metaphysically, reality erasing the echo. They ran as the hospital fell apart around them. Marcus burst outside and kept running. Behind him the hospital flickered. There, not there, weaker each time. The final flicker showed Henry Morrison in a window, surrounded by hundreds of figures, all of them smiling, crying, grateful. Henry raised a hand in farewell. Then the hospital was gone. Just an empty lot remained. "It worked," Dr. Rodriguez said quietly. "They're free. All of them." Marcus felt tears on his face. He'd felt all 307 of them passing through him on their way to whatever came next. Their relief, their gratitude, their joy at finally being released after decades of being trapped. 3 months after the hospital, Marcus's sensitivity had increased dramatically. He could sense echoes before detectors could, feel their presence, understand their emotions. "You're becoming more attuned," Dr. Morrison warned. "That's dangerous. You're straddling both worlds, the living and the echoes." Then came the night everything changed. Marcus woke at 3 a.m. to his phone ringing. Dr. Morrison panicked. "Multiple echo manifestations, all at once. Your neighborhood. 27 simultaneous echoes." Marcus looked out his window and saw them. Figures emerging from houses, yards, shadows. All of them with that telltale wrongness. All of them echoes. "The hotspot is erupting," Dr. Morrison said. "It's generating echoes automatically. Get out now." But as Marcus headed for the door, he realized the echoes were surrounding his house. Dozens of them standing silently, looking up at his windows. He was trapped. A knock at the door. Gerald Pritchard stood there, smiling. "Hello, Marcus. We need to talk, all of us." "Gerald, but you're gone." "Echoes don't truly end. We slip back to the other side, waiting, and when a hotspot erupts, we can come back. Everyone you've ever released is here now." Tyler Morrison's voice joined Gerald's. "We came back to warn you, Mr. Marcus. You're transforming. Every echo you release changes you. Tonight, the transformation completes." More voices, all the echoes Marcus had released, all of them speaking in unity. "You're becoming a living echo, someone who exists in both states. You can bridge the gap between life and death." A woman appeared in Marcus's living room, translucent, ancient. "I'm the first echo. I died in 1892 on this spot. I made this place a hotspot, my refusal to move on weakened reality here. And now, 133 years later, my work is complete. This location is becoming a permanent doorway between states. Join us," the echoes pleaded. "Accept the transformation. You can help both sides, guide the confused, end the conflict." Marcus felt it then, the pull toward something else, a state between life and death. He could feel both sides simultaneously, the living and the echoes, all of it at once. Dr. Morrison and the team burst through the door. "Step away from him." But the original echo shook her head. "It's too late, look at him. He's already phasing between states." Dr. Morrison checked her instruments, her face going pale. "Marcus, your reality signature is fluctuating. You're becoming an echo while you're still alive." Marcus looked at his hands and saw them flickering, there and not there, solid and translucent. The transformation was happening whether he wanted it or not. "How do we stop it?" Dr. Chen demanded. "You can't," the original echo said. "He's been marked by too many echoes. He's becoming what reality needs, a bridge between worlds." Marcus felt the pull intensifying. He could understand the echoes' fear, their confusion. And he could feel the living, their grief, their terror of death. Both sides, both states. "I don't want to become an echo," Marcus said. But even as he spoke, he wasn't sure that was true anymore. "This isn't about becoming an echo," the original echo explained. "You're becoming something new, a living echo, someone who exists fully in both states. You can guide the confused, help the living understand that death isn't the end." "Marcus, fight it," Dr. Morrison pleaded. But Marcus wasn't sure he wanted to fight anymore. As a living echo, he could do what no one else could, help both sides, bridge the gap that was tearing reality apart. "I'm sorry," Marcus said to the team, "but I think this is right. This is what needs to happen." He looked at the original echo. "I'm ready." She took his hand. Her touch was cold, but not unpleasant. "Just let go of your attachment to pure life. Accept that you exist in multiple states." Marcus closed his eyes and stopped fighting. He accepted the flickering, the phasing. He accepted that he was alive and also something else. The transformation completed. Marcus opened his eyes and saw everything differently. The world was layered, physical reality overlapping with a shadow realm where echoes existed. He could see both simultaneously, exist in both simultaneously. "Welcome," the original echo said. "You're the first living echo. What you do next determines the future of both worlds." Dr. Morrison was crying. "You're still Marcus, but you're also something else now." "I'm still me," Marcus assured her. "Just more. I can help now, guide the echoes, bridge the gap." He looked at the dozens of echoes surrounding his house. "And I need to stabilize this hotspot before it tears reality apart." Marcus focused his hybrid nature on the wound in reality beneath his feet. He touched it gently, not closing it, but regulating it. The eruption slowed. The echoes stopped appearing en masse. "Now help them," the original echo said. "All these echoes need guidance." Marcus addressed them. "I know you're scared, but holding on isn't life. I'm here to help you, to guide you toward what comes next. It won't be the void. There is something else." Over the following hours, Marcus helped echo after echo, Some moved on immediately, others stayed to learn how to exist peacefully before eventually letting go. Dr. Morrison and the team watched, supporting however they could. By dawn, the crisis was over. The hotspot was stabilized, the echoes were guided, and Marcus stood, transformed, no longer fully human, but something new, something needed. "What happens now?" Dr. Morrison asked. "Now I do what I was meant to do," Marcus said. "I exist between states. I help the lost find their way. I build bridges." 6 months later, Marcus's backyard had become a way station for echoes. The hotspot was regulated, generating echoes 1 or 2 at a time, and Marcus was there to meet each one, to explain, to guide, to show them the path forward. Emma visited often, helping document everything. She'd become the network's primary researcher, brilliant and fearless. "You're still Dad," she'd said, "just a weird version." Jennifer had come to accept it too, recognizing Marcus was doing important work. The network expanded. Marcus trained other sensitives who could perceive both states. The truth was slowly spreading, preparing humanity for when echoes would be common knowledge. Gerald visited sometimes. They'd become friends in a strange way, two beings existing between states. "Do you regret it?" Gerald asked once. Marcus thought about it. "Sometimes I miss being fully alive, but I don't regret being able to help." As the sun set, new echoes appeared. 3 tonight. Marcus walked toward them, smiling gently. "Hello, I'm Marcus. I'm here to help. You've died, but that's not the end. Let me show you what comes next." The echoes looked at this being who was both alive and dead, and they felt hope. If Marcus could exist in both states, maybe death wasn't so frightening. Maybe it was just a transition. Marcus guided them toward the light he could see in the shadow world. One by one, they accepted and moved on. When the last echo faded, Marcus stood alone, satisfied. This was his life now, existing between states, helping the lost find their way, building bridges between worlds. It wasn't the life he'd planned, but it was the life he'd been meant for. A bridge between worlds, a guide for the lost, a living echo, walking the line between existence and non-existence. He was Marcus Thompson, accountant, father, friend, echo hunter, and now, living echo, bridge between worlds. It was who he'd always been meant to become. The story of his neighbor who died 6 months ago was over, but Marcus Thompson's story was just beginning.